Hello everybody, it's Jared with Wonderfully Wander here. I am having a plumbing problem today, and it's something that I think is really common with all trailers because unfortunately RV manufacturers use a product that I'm going to show you right now that is good for them because it's easy, bad for us because it's not meant for what they use it with. So in our circumstance, it's caused a leak. So let me take you through and show you where our leak is, and we're going to walk through how to fix it. This is what almost everybody sees, is this side of the manifold. Each one of these is a quarter turn ball valve, and depending on which direction you have it sitting, you can either be in dry camping, power fill, city water, winterize, or sanitize. In order for them to accomplish this, there's a overly complicated, in my opinion, manifold behind this system and all of the pipes that fit in with it. The problem that we're dealing with right now is these hoses right here. So this hose here, you can see how it's swollen, and it has been dripping directly onto our transfer switch. The other thing that I don't like about these is this is all plastic, and we're going to try and change a lot of that out with brass. I upgraded my pump a while back, and I also added a bladder to get my pressure to stay solid. And our pump, I don't know if the pump got turned on when we were on city water or what, but the pump has actually sucked this thing flat. So this is the braided nylon, and this is PEX. I know it's kind of hard to tell the difference, but this is like a solid PEX piping that's meant for residential plumbing. It's really good. This is the nylon braided hose. It is not very good. So what we have to do is we have to go and cut all of these crimp rings off, and then we're gonna remove the hose and we'll replace it with the PEX. I have white PEX here that we're going to replace on the red lines. You can see there's a lot of it. Any of this squiggly stuff, that's all the braided stuff. The reason they do it is because with PEX, you can see how many fittings they have to use in order to get the angles right. With this braided stuff, they just whoop, bend it however they want to, and it's very flexible. So I see the draw, but also I'm frustrated with them for doing it because they know that it's not okay and it's prone to leaking. If you can't get this hose replaced, this is the line that flushes my black tank. The recommendation that I was given was put 2 rings on it and kind of put them, that's not quite a 90, but try and put them off angle so they're not in line, so that they'll crimp even, and then put the fitting back in. And you can see here, once you put this fitting in, those rings will have a full purchase on that and hopefully seal it a little bit better. When I was installing my pump, I did that here. Seems like it's working. I'm still going to replace this, but it seems like it's working okay. So I'm going to try that with my black fill line. I rarely use it because it's just for flushing the black tank. But that's what I'm going to do to fix that portion. This is what we're going to need to fix everything. This is the style that I decided to go with. This is a crimp ring. I think a lot of people refer to these as wedding rings because you can see this little top piece here. Crimper fits on top of that, and it just squeezes tight. You can see the jaws there. Just squeezes down. The nice thing about these wedding rings is they're a lot easier to use in confined spaces. So I've got a 10-pack of T's. That's a 3-way fitting. I've got 3 straight connectors, and I have a 25-pack of elbows. If you can find them in contractor packs like this, they're a lot cheaper. I bought 8 of these at $2.69 a piece, and I bought this 25 pack for $28. So these were like $1.15 a piece. These were $2.69 a piece. So if I found these first and I found these second, and the town that I'm in is kind of small, so I didn't think I'd find any. So if I don't use any of these, I can return them. And then I have my cold line for the cold pecs. And then you can look inside this is just basically plastic tubing. And these barbed ends, you can see them, the barbed ends fit inside here. You put one of these wedding rings on top of it and crimp it on, and they stay really, really well. They don't leak. I was told a couple of different ways to get these old rings off. We're going to try a couple of them. I've got a set of cutters here. I've got a set of channel locks. I've got my crimpers. This is a knife to cut the pecs to the sizes that I need, but that's pretty much all we need. The problem that I'm having with these is these are not brass. These fittings are plastic. These manifolds back here are all plastic. My fear is if I start cranking on these suckers, they are going to break. So what I ended up doing is I got a metal hacksaw and I cut through that right there. As soon as that pops off, this is a good demonstration of how floppy this stuff is. There's just no substance to it. There's no rigidity to it. And that's why we're changing it out to this PEX, because the PEX is very rigid. This is not. So now that that's cut, that just relieves the tension. I want to do this with 2 hands so I don't break that plastic that I've been telling you about, but that relieves the pressure off of that fitting, and we'll be able to slide that right off. And there you have the fitting and the hose. So you can see down inside that hose, it's not super substantial and it's really flimsy. You can just kind of squeeze it and it's got problems. So anyway, we'll work on, unfortunately, I have to, like this, cut with a hacksaw every single one of these stupid bands so I don't break any fittings. I think while I'm at it, I'm going to reposition my pump and my bladder, maybe turn it a little bit so that it's out of the way. When I installed this in the first place, I didn't realize that I put the pressure tank too far this way, so now my you can actually see the line right here. That's where my partition wall is supposed to go. So I put it about 2 inches too far to the right. So we'll move that over. I've started by removing this piece. I cut this piece down here. And I cut this piece back here. I'm going to slide all of this out. And I've cut this piece and this piece. So you can see here, this piece loops down here and makes a lazy turn and goes, that's my low point drain. So I cut 3 pieces of this white. I'm going to replace the red with white, and then I bought some blue PEX to replace the blue. Not for any reason other than it was available. So I'm going to take this piece and put it down in there so it'll come out, and then I'll have a 90 on this end, and it'll come back up to here where it's supposed to go, because this PEX isn't meant to make quite that fluid of a turn. It is bendable, it's just not quite that bendable. I don't want to put that much strain on a plastic part. This is how easy this is. You've got the crimp here. These have to be all the way open. That's the only restriction that we have for being able to get access. These are a ratchet, so as soon as they click once, they're locked, and you have to go all the way closed before you can go open. So this is like so you don't have to spread your hand so far apart. You pull it until you can get a hold of this other one, and then once it's all the way closed, then it clicks open and opens back up. So we have our new piece of PEX there, and you can see this is the new wedding ring, and see how this one is not smashed yet versus how these are smashed together. So we put this on this crimp here, slide it all the way up so that it's sitting against this little piece here. I'm not replacing this T because I don't really want to mess with all of this because it's already good PEX. I'm going to angle the ring down, and then you can see where this position is right here. Once you put this on, that's positioned basically right up against this little spacer bracket here. You want that pushed all the way forward so that it'll get good purchase on those on those shanks. And then I'm going to see if I can do this one-handed. Okay, you heard it start to close. And then I'm going to reach down here. Oh, this is way easier to do with two hands. There we go. Okay. Now that's nice and smashed together. I can no longer move this. I can't twist it. That's a good solid fit. So that's how these crimp rings work. Had to do a little bit of planning ahead. So that is the blue or the cold line low point drain. I'm also going to be replacing that, but the problem is if I put the red in first, then the blue, then I'd block myself off. So I ran into an issue where I couldn't get this hacksaw all the way back in here to cut that bracket off because I just couldn't get a good angle on it. So I ended up using a multi-tool, a zip tool, to reach back in there. The problem with the zip tool is it creates so much friction, but it got really hot and it made the pipe deform and the pipe just popped off. So that was good enough. So I'm happy that I got it off. The reason that I'm using this hacksaw, oh goodness, the reason that I'm using the hacksaw instead of the zip saw, this generates a ton of heat, whereas this doesn't, because you're just doing it nice and slow. So I would still, if you can, I would recommend just using the hacksaw. I tried the nippers. I think if I got a bigger pair, maybe I could cut the top of the ring off and it would let go, but it just wasn't getting anywhere with it. So I tried that. The other recommendation was get the crimp tool, put it back over the head, grab a pair of crescents and just kind of rip it off. But I didn't want to break these plastic pieces, so the hacksaw is the way we went. Hot side is done. We've got brass fittings. I had to rebuild, that trunk's kind of hard to see. I had to rebuild that trunk coming out for the hot side. I've got my low point drain. I've got my line that comes down here now and fits in with the rest of the hot. So that will go to the shower and the sinks and all that kind of stuff. And then we have the line coming straight out from the hot water heater. I will say, don't kid yourself on how many of these little crimp rings that you're going to use. There's that tight little spot down in there that I did. That was kind of a booger. I have used, just in that line, this line, these, and here, I've used 25 crimp rings. So if you have, if you can find a contractor pack of crimp rings, you're going to need a lot of them. Next up, we are going to address the pump issue. Right now I have them sitting this way, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate them so that the pump is sitting on top with the outlet facing up, and I'll have the outlet down here facing down with the inlet is up here and the outlet is down here. I think that'll line up a little bit better between those two pipes. There you go. I was going to have the pressure down low. Problem with that is this little nipple right here is what you use to charge or discharge the bladder. And if I would have tucked it all the way back under there, in order for me to change the PSI in the bladder, I would have had to completely dismount this thing, and it would have been a pain. So I'm glad I thought of that ahead of time. It did make for a little creative plumbing. We got this line that comes out here and drops down and drops into the pump. This was the line that was crushed. So now we got a fresh, hard line, not this soft, floppy stuff. So we won't have that problem anymore. And I don't think I've used the pump since we've been on city water for a long time, so it may have caused some problems where I wouldn't have been able to get water from the pump because of that collapsed line like that. I'm glad we caught it when we did. This comes from our tank into freshwater tank into the pump, and then it comes up here and back into the manifold. I think I had 50 crimps and I'm down to 3. I don't know that it's necessarily neater, but at least it won't leak. I did end up adding a little support wire. I just took some spare wire that I had in my electrical kit and I crimped some ends on, and that just gives this a little extra hanging support. It's not super heavy on that line, but you know, it doesn't hurt. None of these have any weight on them. One thing to be super careful with when you're doing your first pressure test is I found a leak, which is no big deal. I just need to reseat that pressure fitting. But when you turn your water back on, make sure you turn it on gently. If you don't, then that can rush the whole system. If you turn it on all at once, you can add extra force to the pipes. You can blow a pipe that, you know, otherwise might have been fine. Well, there's the final overview. That's all the junk that I ripped out. All of this is that braided nylon tube stuff. Here is the final completed plumbing job. We had one leak under here. That was a crimp ring pushed a little bit too far up on the collar. I ended up cutting that crimp ring back off and crimped it with a new crimp ring. In this project we ended up using 25 90-degree angles like this guy. We used 2 T's and we used 80 crimp rings. You can see the toilet's done up here. We went up, over, through, and up. Here is a view of the top side of the plumbing going into the toilet. A pro tip I would like to pass on to you is whenever you're working on these plumbing projects, if you can, it's always good to implement a quarter turn shutoff valve like this one here. That way, if you ever have any issues with your plumbing, you can shut off the water at whatever appliance is having the problem rather than shutting off the plumbing throughout the entire trailer or house. And finally, here we are with the redone plumbing in the water closet to the filter. The only one that I am not going to replace is this guy right here, and what they did is they got it a little off on the angle, so you can see that's bent at a weird angle. In order to fix that, I would have to cut that whole manifold apart and make adjustments, and I just don't want to do that. That one's not leaking. It hasn't shown any signs of leaking. If it does leak in the future, I will address that at another date. Right now, I'm very happy with the total project. That was a lot of work. I ended up going through 2 days of work. had to go on a secondary parts run for some more crimp rings because I didn't buy enough. So like I said before, if you are going into these projects, don't kid yourself, you're going to use a lot of crimp rings. Here we are. Partition wall is reinstalled. I have reclaimed my storage space. Now I at least know, I have peace of mind that there will be no more leaks. Thank you so much for joining me on this process. Again, my name is Jared. If you had any questions about this process or remarks or things you think I could have done better, please let me know. Comment down below. There's always room for improvement for everybody. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And until next time, join us here on Wonderfully Wander.